everybody. My name is Raven Baxter. I'm also known in the internet streets as Raven the Science Maven, and I'm so excited to be here tonight for the season 3 premiere of STEMbassy. This is the place where STEM ambassadors meet, and that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, if you aren't sure. And if this is your first time joining us here, welcome. If you're a weekly watcher, thank you for supporting STEMbassy throughout seasons 1 and 2 and our STEMbassy After Darks. We are so excited to be here, and thank you for supporting us, whether this is your first time or not. And we love hearing from our audience. Tell us where you're from in the chat. I want to see some people in the chat. So tell me where you're watching from. Let us know. Are you a new watcher? Are you just now finding out about STEMbassy? Where did you hear about us from? Is this, not your first time watching us and you are a weekly watcher? Okay, I see we have some people from Great Britain here. Welcome. Thank you for watching. Waiting for some more comments to roll in. Let us know where you're from, where you're listening from. Anyways, as you all are making your comments, because there's a little bit of a lag, I want to tell you a little bit about what STEMbassy is, because this is our season premiere, and I want to reintroduce the show to you. This is a weekly talk show centered around STEM. Again, that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's hosted by 5 incredibly talented and passionate women in STEM, and you're about to meet all of us very soon. Every week, we bring on a STEM professional who is doing amazing work in the STEM community and working to progress STEM culture as a whole. Usually, we bring on someone who is tied to a social cause and really has an interesting story that we can all learn from. We also talk about current events and hot topics that pertain to STEM and beyond, and society as a whole. We play games with our audience, and we get to know each other. It's usually a very great time here. We're always laughing. I can't think of an episode where we haven't laughed. I don't think that even exists, to be honest with you. We are always enjoying each other's company. And that's STEMbassy. So this is something that you don't want to miss. Make sure that you're setting this in your calendar. We are every Sunday at 8:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I see Bill, you're watching from Seattle. Thank you for watching, Bill. Ashe is from Portland, Oregon. Thank you for watching. Okay, well, thanks for telling me where you're from. It's great to hear from our audience. Don't stop talking in the chat. We love to hear from you. Now it's time to bring on our hosts. We have Jay, Amanda, Chanel, and Ariana. So I'm going to bring out Jay. Come on out.
Hello. Hi, Raven. And hello, beautiful people. I am Jay. I'm a UX researcher and international psychology student. I'm also passionate about AI, cybersecurity, and women empowerment. I am also the host of a podcast called Get Into It Podcast, and that's where I unpack topics of culture and technology from a psychological standpoint. I'm super, super excited about today.
Hey, welcome. I'm so excited about season 3 as well, Jay. I cannot wait to have these amazing conversations with not only you, but all these exciting, fun people that we have on the show. So next up is Amanda.
Hello, everyone. I am Amanda. I'm a PhD student at the University of California, San Diego. I love learning about biology and space and how these things can interact in interesting ways. I am also a host of a new podcast called Triplicates. It's hosted by me and 2 other first-gen women of color pursuing their doctoral degrees, and we are trying to give advice, tips, some stories from people so we can pass on our knowledge to you so you don't have to learn things the hard way like we did. So you can follow us at Triplicates Pod on all major streaming platforms and Twitter, Instagram to keep up with what we have coming out.
We love to see it.
We do. We do love to see
it. And again, Get Into It podcast and Triplicates podcast. Both podcasts produced by our STEMbassy hosts here. So do not forget to check that out in your free time. Okay, next up, we are bringing in Dr. Chanel.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to season 3. Okay, so I'm Chanel. You already know me. If you don't, I'm also known as the Public Health Bae. Why? Well, I'm a cell molecular biologist with a doctorate in You guessed it, public health. Guess what else? I'm also the newest science policy officer for the B-side. B-side. So check us out. We always have podcasts as well. Everyone's doing a podcast and other information about being a scientist. I currently work in human health and toxicology, but from time to time, you'll see me go like this and put on my public health hat. And that means you're going to get some insight as to how something we talked about tonight on the show, one of our STEM topics, is relative to cultural competency, health education, and health literacy. Now, stick around for tonight's public health act because we're going to get into antibodies and the COVID vaccine. So stay tuned for public health act.
We again love to what?
See it.
Okay. Okay. Last but not least of our STEMbassy hosts, we are bringing on Ariana. Come on up.
Hey everyone, I'm Ariana. I'm also known as Ari the Ecologist on the internet. I am a wildlife biologist and I just finished my Master's in Wildlife Ecology studying bobcats in New Jersey. I am currently an adjunct instructor teaching some labs at a university, and I'm also a wildlife technician. Also part of our STEMbassy team is our amazing producer, December. So if you hear us talking to her in the background, just know that she is working hard to keep our stream running smooth. I would also like to shout out my Etsy store, Wildlife Wanderlust. So make sure you check that out. Here's an exclusive sneak peek of some stuff that you might be able to see coming up, showing up on the store. So you guys got the first view. And while we're doing shout outs, make sure you are following STEMbassy on Twitter and Instagram at STEMbassy, on Facebook as The STEMbassy, and you can find links to all these platforms at our website, STEMbassy.org. And don't forget to join us on Patreon at patreon.com/STEMbassy.
Thank you, Ariana. And I'm so excited to be back on stage with you all, Jay, Amanda, Ariana, Chanel. It's going on a year now. I think we're very close to it being an entire year of us doing this show. And I just want to say, before we bring on our amazing guest, how honored I am to be starting season 3 with all of you. To those who are watching, I've never met women who are so down for a cause, and I have never had to beg them to do anything. I started STEMbassy, but I asked them to come on because I saw that they were women who were just about their stuff. They're about what they say they do. They work hard. They're very passionate about STEM and about personal growth and just doing their own thing unapologetically. I respect these women up here. And if you've never watched STEMbassy, now is a good time to be a fan because everybody up on this stage is going places, okay? Going places. So you're gonna have to keep up every week. Every week we're gonna have some news for you. But as far as STEMbassy goes, we all work together very hard to make this an entertaining space and a safe space for us to talk about STEM unapologetically and just have fun, right? And we want you to have fun too. So let us know in the chat. Let us know in the chat some of the things that you love about STEMbassy if you are a veteran watcher. And for those of you who are new, hang tight. It's going to be a very fun show. Let's talk about our guest, okay? Our guest, we're joined by a very special STEM ambassador. Dr. Heloise Stevance is an astrophysicist and science communicator, and she's currently working at the University of Auckland, trying to uncover the mysteries of the most extreme stellar explosions in the universe. Okay, I want you guys to marinate on that for a second, okay, because that's very impressive, all right? She's working on understanding and uncovering the mysteries of the most extreme stellar star explosions in the universe. You might know her on the interwebs as, through her Twitter at Supernovae, SYDONHI, or on her YouTube as Dr. Heloise. And you probably might be able to keep up with her on her website at hfstevance.com. I personally enjoy her commentary in the astrophysics world and astrophysics current events and culture. I learned a lot from her, so I'm very excited about bringing her on tonight, especially with all the exciting things happening with space exploration right now. So, without further delay, I would love to welcome to you to STEMbassy, Dr. Heloise Stevance.
Yay! Thank you, everyone. I'm so happy to be with y'all.
I'm so
Oh,
excited.
this is super exciting.
Welcome to STEMbassy.
It is.
Welcome to STEMbassy. We're so excited to have you on as our first guest of season 3. Honestly, can't think of a better person to open up with. I love your energy. I love your spirit and your passion for what you do. And also, probably the coolest thing about you to me is your unapologetic attitude with it all. I feel like you're somebody you just come into the space as you are, and I don't feel like you really care about anybody.
I feel like I care to an extent, like I don't want to step on anyone. I feel like you've got to be clear about who you are, and so long as you're not hurting anyone, just do whatever you want. And that's it.
Agreed.
You know?
Absolutely. And there are some cool things about you that I think people should know, like you do roller derby, don't you? Which I
do. I've got training tonight and everything.
Thanks for hanging out with us. I mean, you're just such a cool person. I'm so excited for this show. So yeah.
Dr. Heloise, you said something really interesting for those who don't know, right? You said tonight. So where we are, it's already nighttime. Can you tell everyone where you are, what time it is, and what season it is where you are right now, please?
Right. So it's 2 p.m., nearly 2:30 on Monday, because I live in the future. I live in New Zealand. So it is Monday today, nearly the end of Monday, nearly in the end of the workday. And it's the height of summer, basically. So it's still nice and light and super warm and still a bit humid. So I've got the fan going and everything. I've got the doors open. So yeah, if you hear the jackhammer, it's because they're doing work at the university. So
yeah, you did. I think I need to move.
Well, you know, we get winter as well, but
I know, but I mean, like, you'll have a home base in the States, but when it gets cold, I could just come with you.
Just winter in New Zealand. That's totally fine.
Okay.
Well, before we jump into our conversation, we really like to try and highlight our charity of the week so that everybody has as much time as possible to visit the resources and donate if you are able to. So this week we are highlighting Rainbow Youth. And so Rainbow Youth is a charitable organization that was established in 1989. This organization provides support, resources, and advocacy for queer, gender diverse, Takata Tapui, and intersex youth, their friends, Wanao, and wider communities in order to ensure that Aotearoa, New Zealand, is a place where all young people can thrive. We encourage you to visit Rainbow Youth page and donate through their website if you are able to. And Dr. Stevance, please correct me if I said those wrong. I am happy to learn new pronunciation.
It's tough to do Maori pronunciation when you're like an English speaker. So like, for example, Aotearoa, like the R's are like between an L and a French R. So and they're like one of the Spanish R's, quite similar. So like if you're from Europe, it's a bit easier. But yeah, you got it, girl. And yeah, I love this organization. They're amazing. Like they really stuck in my mind because when I heard about them, they were showcasing, and they still have that. They have a like communal closet, so they've got clothes, gender affirming clothing that like teenagers can go in. You know, if they don't have a supportive family, they can go in and wear gender affirming clothing if they need to. And I found that was such a good idea, and I just love them. That's it.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
So you can see their link below. Definitely go and check them out. If you are able to donate, please. This is a great organization that if you got some coin to throw somewhere, you can throw it there.
Thank you so much for sharing this cause with us. It's a very important cause that's near and dear to our hearts as well. So we love to create spaces where people feel like they can thrive and feel welcome. So any way that an organization is doing that for another person, we 100% support. So thank you. And everyone, don't forget to support that organization. Okay.
Absolutely.
So we have some fans here. I'm going to bring up a comment. John from YouTube says, Heloise is awesome. Fab, yes. Woo! So yeah, let's just jump right into it. I want to ask you questions about massive stars and how they die as supernova and kilonova. I actually didn't realize that there were different types of star explosions, but you know what? I'm just gonna go under the rock now because I feel I'm a scientist.
No, it's fine. Like, it's totally normal. Like, nova, supernova, kilonova. Like, what is this madness? So, supernova is like one of the ones that people have heard about, I think, because like they make the bigger bang, and so you hear about it in the news, and they were super popular in the last 10-15 years, something like that. So a massive star, when it gets to the end of its life, it runs out of fuel in the core. But when a massive star runs out of fuel in the core, something catastrophic happens. The core completely collapses because it can't support itself, and it happens like in a quarter of a second, literally. And it condenses like 1.5 times the mass of the sun into like a sphere that's about 10 kilometers across. So whatever that is in miles, I'm sorry, US, but you've got to get on the metric, like, please, for the love of everyone else.
Wait, is it 10 kilometers? I think that's 6 miles.
Okay,
I got you.
Oh yeah, that's
6.2. 6.2.
And then plus again. Yeah, about 6 miles across. So it's really dense. Like, if one of your red blood cells was as dense as neutron star material, it would weigh about as much as Donald Trump, which is pretty dense, you know.
I was trying to keep a straight face.
Yes, and it always works.
I appreciate that whole. I was trying to keep a straight face.
I was.
But thank you so much.
I took a second to think in. I was like, did she? Yep,
She did.
I'm right, and I'm going to milk it for years to come. Okay.
Dunk
Like,
on him.
You will too.
Dunk on him.
Astrophysicist and comedian,
You're-
just so you know.
oh my god.
No one will be
Anyways.
that.
All right,
So
kilonova.
the neutron star is super dense, and the rest of the material of the star is still collapsing, but less quickly. And then it bounces off the neutron star, and that starts an explosion. And that explosion completely disrupts the star. You get beautiful ejecta, and a big bang, a big flash of light that you can actually detect from Earth. Now, the kilonovae are a bit different. They are what happens when like two neutron stars. So you've had the supernova before. But sometimes stars, very often actually, have a friend that they live with. You know, they don't live their lives alone. They were not born alone, and they don't live their lives alone. And so sometimes two massive stars live their lives together. They both go supernova, and then the neutron stars eventually like spiral in and merge. And when that happens, that's where you get the kilonova, and you also get a big burst of gravitational waves just before the merger, and you can detect those as well. Pretty
Wait,
crazy.
okay.
That's
How do you detect gravity
I know.
from far away?
I know. Like, so like those gravitational waves, they like expand through the fabric of space-time, just like, you know, if you throw a rock in a pond, the waves are going to expand gradually. Same concept. So it travels through space at the speed of light, and eventually it passes through the Earth. Now, what happens is that you have to detect a shift in like space, like literally space moving. So how do you do that? Super complicated. I'm going to use the power of highlighters to highlight my point. So you've got something.
See what you did there. I love it. That
was completely improvised. I did not prepare that. So if you use something that's called an interferometer. So it uses interference in order to figure out what's happening. So very loose summary, you have two arms that are 90-degree angles. Okay, you've got on one end, on this end, you've got a laser that shoots, and it's being split between this arm and this arm, like by a fancy mirror that can like let some light through and deflect some light. On the end of the arms that are both the same length, you have a mirror. And those mirrors are very special. They have to be suspended on a pendulum and be completely isolated from every motion on Earth, like earthquakes, lorry that drives by like 3 miles away, all of that stuff. so that if they do move, it's because a gravitational wave has passed by. And what happens is that because they can move when gravitational waves pass by, the length of this arm changes ever so slightly by a distance that's about like 10,000 times smaller than the size of an atom, just casual, just fine,
Wait,
I know. Bear with me.
Wait, this is so cool.
Those are the physicists. The physicists are responsible for this magic, so I am just as admirative. I explain it, but it is magic to me too. So around 10 to the minus 21 meters is the sort of motion that you can detect. And that laser, when it comes back, because one arm is slightly longer than the other, then the light wave, it's no longer aligned with the other arm, and that's where the interference comes from, and that's how you detect things. So in order to detect something that's like such a short distance, the laser has to travel like many, many times across the arm and all of that stuff in order to allow you to even detect anything. And then the signal, because it's so complicated, you have to use a lot of machine learning and statistical methods that are quite modern in order to even understand the signal. And it took thousands of people to get that to work. So kudos to them.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Crazy.
That is really cool.
Like that little tiny shift makes a difference.
I know.
That's crazy.
It does. You can detect it. It's magic. Physics is
That's
magic.
crazy.
Yeah.
It works, bitches.
I was my teacher when I was younger.
Oh, science is cool.
That is so cool. We have a question from the chat. Can we pull that up? It says, how
From
exactly
Hannah.
Hello, Hannah.
Hey,
It
Hannah.
says, how exactly do elements, especially those heavier than iron, form during supernovae?
Yeah,
How do you-
supernovae.
Okay. I'm
it's
always
awesome.
mind blown over how it generates so much energy. It's truly magical.
It's amazing. Space is just the best. And very good point. The elements that are heavier than iron have to be formed like outside of the star because the star can't make them. So it happens in the supernova. Now, supernovae can't make all of the elements heavier than iron. It can make some of the elements, especially, I'm sorry, Slack, it's work time. My boss is like, what are you doing?
I'm on a show.
Just casually. So it's a process we call the S process for slow process. So what is slow in this process? It's how many neutrons you're firing at the atom. So when you have your supernova that explodes, the shock is so strong that it actually just disrupts the atoms that are already in there, and it just creates a soup of neutrons that come out with the rest of the ejector. And so when you have your atoms that are kind of still doing just their own thing, then they get shot at by neutrons and they get heavier than they were before, and that's how you can make some of these elements. Now, there's another process that happens in kilonovae especially called the R process, the rapid process. And that's where there is just so many neutrons that you can fire neutrons quickly enough on the atom before there is what we call beta decay. Essentially, before the neutrons can turn back into protons, because if you don't have the right balance, if you've got way too many neutrons for the protons in the atom, the neutrons are just like, there's too many of us, I'm just going to decay into a proton. They just do their thing. And but if you can do it fast enough, you can go past that like weird line of like instability and make the elements that are stable above that line. And that's how you create some like rare earth elements and gold and platinum and that kind of stuff.
So cool.
That is really
Very
cool.
cool.
Stars are literally the factories of the universe. Like all of that stuff would not happen otherwise.
Do you have a favorite star?
That's a very good point. I don't have a favorite star, but I have a favorite supernova. Yeah, I guess it's a neutron star. My favorite is the Crab Nebula. So the whole thing, like with the pulsar in the middle and everything. Just because it's just a beautiful picture, and you can see so many things in the more recent like mosaics they have. So they've taken pictures. More recently, they've taken a new picture with Chandra, which was still an X-ray telescope, where they just looked at it for so long, and you can actually see the pulsar and like the whirlwind just around the pulsar that's rotating, and some of the jet features, which is just incredible. And when you put that together with the nebula, it looks like someone made it in like CGI. it looks like Pixar was just like, let's just have some fun, you know. But no, like the universe made this and was just so much more creative than we could ever be, and I love that.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Very.
You sound so excited. I love your energy. Like yours.
I wish the teachers when I was coming up were like you. Well, yeah, all of y'all really, but my God, that's so cool.
Hold it
So it's
up.
the one at the top.
Which one? This
Is
one?
the crab to the right. So yeah, that's the X-ray alone, and that's real.
Wow.
Like
Real.
that's the X-ray image. That's the actual X-ray image from the telescope, which is
Get
just
out.
I know. Go home, telescope. You're drunk. Like, no, you didn't see that.
That's beautiful.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and that's without
Supernova.
Why are they called the Crab Nebula, Dr. Heloise?
Because so if you look at it in the optical wavelengths with a telescope that doesn't have as many details, it kind of looks like a crab, but honestly, like, I don't understand. Like, so the second one from the right, that's the one that has all of the images. Sorry, from the left. I just don't know my right and my left. That's okay.
It's okay,
fine.
me either.
I have a PhD. It's okay.
It's fine.
I get it. I totally get it.
So yeah, this image is my favorite, and you can find it on Wikipedia. It's somewhere on the wiki page of the Crab Nebula, and they have a high-res version of it because NASA and ESA tend to release their beautiful pictures either in the public domain or often just as a Creative Commons by attribution. So you can use them in anything so long as you give them credit. And I tend to use their like material for teaching purposes because it's just so gorgeous, you know.
So
That's
good.
so cool.
It's
So cool.
Look at that. That is
Yeah.
the brain.
That's real. That's us. Like that's out there.
Oh no, it's Cassiopeia. Or was it the crab? I
gorgeous.
can't remember. One of them nebulae, either the crab or Cassiopeia. I can't remember. Recently, a paper came out, and they mapped out like how fast thing is moving because obviously that's a 2D projection. And it turns out it's heart shaped, like it's got a weird lobe, and it's heart shaped in 3 dimensions.
How cool.
I'm gonna make a video about this at some point, but God, I don't have time. Like,
I'm so
This is
excited
crazy.
for it.
That's so
I
cool.
am committed to the heart aesthetic. My glasses.
Yes, you are.
Like, I would
it's your
eat that
nebula.
up.
That's it. It's
I
your
would
nebula
eat it
now.
up. Thank you. Yes. Oh.
You know what? It reminds me, one of my favorite video games right now, it's called Outer Wilds. And the whole premise of the game is you're stuck in a time loop that's generated by an ancient civilization that realized that they were in a supernova explosion. So the whole game is like in a 22-minute cycle where you have to basically uncover all the mysteries of this solar system you live in 22 minutes before the supernova happens.
Wow.
And the supernova happens and you can see it. It looks exactly how you described it. It condenses, it gets really small, and then it boom, it like gets really big. But that's when you restart, like your memories get sent back to this like thing, and then you have to restart. It's really trippy.
That's an interesting concept. I like that.
Don't do it under the influence, okay? It's very
Ah.
okay. All right, you can do this.
Don't tell me what to do.
I'm trying to save everybody. Outer Wilds. So if you like,
What system are you playing on?
you can play it on any system. Like it's on Steam, it's on Xbox. I think it's on PS, PlayStation. But it's very good. If you like science, it's good. And like it teaches you a lot about physics because you have to maneuver spacecraft, and they show you like all the calculations that go into it. It's really nice.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this was incredibly educational. Thank you. And I think it's a perfect segue into our next topic, which is science communication, because you just communicated science to us very effectively. Okay. I'm super intrigued. When we get off of here, I'm looking at all the Crab Nebula pictures. Tell us what is your vibe in the Cycom world? Like, what do you love about it? What are some of the challenges that you experience in Cycom? And Yeah, I can't. I really want to hear your input because you're one of my favorite Cycommers.
Crazy, you're my favorite god. Oh god, you're so. It's oh girl, I'm fangirling about you, and you're fangirling about me. This is a mood. This is a mood.
Yeah, it is.
Everyone's just like, yeah. So that's such a good question because Cycom is such a big world, and because I'm not a Cycommer by trade. I'm a researcher. It's kind of that question I keep asking myself, like, what is my place in Cycom and how much time should I dedicate to it? Because it's such a big question. And Cycom, it's like, because obviously you've got people who have more resources or they have an agency behind them or a news channel, blah, 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 blah. But then more traditional media has this tendency to focus on very specific topics because they have coin to make. And therefore, they're looking after what will get them clicks, what will get them attention. And it gets kind of repetitive. And then there is, what we have on our side of the internet where we kind of do our own source. And I love that. I just love that. And everyone's kind of creating their own niche, which is amazing. And I'm really liking this, but I wish that the media kind of paid more attention to that more like actually linked to the interest of science and the interest of scientists, Cycom side of things, because there is a lot of stuff that's not getting attention and that could, if it was given a little bit of production, a little bit of just a spotlight, because it's just tiring. And I've seen things on TikTok. I'm no longer on TikTok because it drives me crazy. I have seen things like 18-year-old dudes just making shit up, like literally.
Yeah.
And getting millions of likes, millions of views. And it's like,
No way.
you cannot compete. Like, if you're just literally making things up, like, this black hole swallowed a planet, it's like, no. No, sir. Are you okay? Do you need assistance? Like, and it's just infuriating. It's really infuriating. So it's trying to find that balance between realizing, like, putting the effort in for the people that will pay attention and are really keen, really interested, and kind of letting go of the fact that some people will just read headlines and that's as far as they're going to go. And you need to let go of that and not be upset if, you don't get as much spotlight as the clickbaiters, because that's what they do. And that's not what you do. What you do is you speak your truth, you speak your science, and the people that come along are worth it. And that's enough. So I try to strike that balance. And also, obviously I have a job. So I try to retweet a lot of like the other Cycommers that either it's their job or an actual side hustle, because they have so much information about like sciences, like, because they'll do things like, for example, Raven, you do things about loads of different kinds of sciences. I only do astronomy, because it's my niche. There's loads of Cycommers I've met on Twitter about like who do volcanology, who do biomedical sciences, who do chemistry, and I try to like give some like light to those things because I can't do that job. And so I try to like share the love. But yeah, finding your niche and being happy with it, realizing that there's only so many hours in the day that you have, is super healthy in any job and in any hobby, I think.
That is so important to say, because I think there's a lot of people just coming into Cycom and they get overwhelmed feeling like they have to know everything. Like I have to be an expert. I have to know everything about science. And I'm just like, you don't have to know everything. Like if you know something about science and you fact check yourself, like just share the information,
exactly,
make it as engaging as you can, and that's okay. Like people kind of underestimate how some information that may seem so simple to us can be mind blowing to somebody.
Exactly.
Like even just the basic nature of how cells work is the basic of my field, but can be mind blowing to somebody who's never really studied that before. And it doesn't matter if it's basic or not. If you can communicate it, that's all
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Like the other day, this person who was talking about icebergs and how they don't float the way they do in the pictures that, like in the pictures that they create with CGI. And so now someone has made an entire game where you draw an iceberg and it will just pop back to like its shape that it would float in. It's so much fun. It's great. It's amazing.
You can draw any iceberg shape and it'll float. like the how it's supposed to. It was so cool. Have y'all played it?
It's just great.
No.
I've seen it on Twitter, and people have made some interesting shapes. I saw someone do a dinosaur, and I was like, very creative. I love the energy.
How did it float, the dinosaur?
It kind of like, it was like a long-tailed dinosaur, so like the tail like kind of like if it was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
it went like I don't have anything around me. Yeah, it just like kind of like, instead of being its neck up, its neck went like doof. And then it just like, I wish I had something to demonstrate what that with. I'm like,
I totally just drew a scribble on my other screen, and I'm like, this is so cool.
It's so cool. It's so fun to watch it like kind of float and like do like adjust itself. Like it's
you will be surprised how many hours of procrastination there is in that game. Like,
I've linked the game in the chat for our viewers. So if you would like to play the Iceberger game, go for it. Go
I love that.
for it. Okay. So speaking of science communication, one of my favorite things to do lately is watch your commentary on science culture drama. And I don't know if I even want to call it drama commentary, because that's kind of playing down the importance of using your voice when it's needed.
Sip C. I love it. Sip C. I love it.
That was perfect timing.
It was.
I love it. But like, so Heloise, tell us about the alien drama that astronomers have been going through lately. Just walk us through a timeline, and what do we need to know? What do we need to be aware of? And what are your opinions about everything happening?
oh my god, that was such an intense week. Been over that, but it was intense. So, okay, there's been a little bit of drama with the astronomers lately. What are they up to? They get bored, so every now and then they come out and they're like, so not really. So there's this guy called Avi Loeb, and he's pretty well known in our little group of astronomers. And every time you mention his name to astronomers, people just go and just roll their eyes. Mm-hmm. And the reason for it is that Avi has been pushing what I call the alien hypothesis quite a bit over the past few years. What I call the alien hypothesis is when there is something that is unknown, not fully understood yet, then you'll throw in aliens to explain what's unexplained, to explain the knowledge void. So it's kind of, I would compare it a little bit to religion, where if there is a void of understanding and knowledge, then you can invoke God and say, that's just how it was designed, But the big difference is that with people who are religious, most of the people who I know who believe in God, they're pretty honest about the fact that there is an act of faith and that it's not the same as science, and that's fine. Spirituality totally has place in the world and with science. The problem with the alien hypothesis is kind of like conspiracy theories, where they want it to be the truth and they want you to believe them and to go along with it. So what's been happening with Avi is that he's been pushing the alien hypothesis on Oumuamua over the past few years. Oumuamua is an asteroid that came to visit the solar system from outside of the solar system, which is pretty crazy, I have to say. You don't need to put aliens in it for it to be interesting. Literally a piece of space rock that came out from another solar system and came to see us. Come on, that's pretty cool in and of itself. And people didn't know how it got here, and it has a weird shape, and we don't fully understand the composition or the shape of it. There's so much that we don't fully know. The problem is that this thing was coming to the solar system, but was going just as fast, just left just as fast. And when we saw it, when we took the pictures, it was already on its way out, and now it's gone, and we'll never have more data, which means that knowledge void, in the case of Oumuamua, is there to stay, because there's only so much data that we have. Now, Avi had tried to push the alien thing on fast radio bursts, which I'm not going to explain, but he already had put an article in The Guardian in 2019 claiming that fast radio bursts, which is a new field of astronomy, because we don't fully understand them yet, are because of aliens and stuff. So he's got a history of doing that stuff. But recently he came out with a book telling people how Oumuamua could be an asteroid, an alien thing, how the alien thing fits in with this well, what I would call a piece of rock, essentially. Mm-hmm. And the reason that astronomers are mad is because he is misrepresenting the science, and because he is a Harvard professor in the media, he's been represented like that. His title is being thrown everywhere around, and the problem is that it sounds like he's representing at least a portion of scientists when he is not. It's very much astronomers and Avi, and the problem is that the media has turned this into astronomers don't believe in aliens, but Avi does, which is not true. Absolutely not true. I bet you cannot find a single astrophysicist who does not believe there is life somewhere else in the universe. And the reason I'm telling you that is because planets are super easy to make, and the building blocks of life are super easy to find. So saying that, like it seems counterintuitive and statistically improbable that there wouldn't be another form of life in the universe. But does that mean they came riding a space rock or like a solar sail to visit the like the solar system? There is a chasm between these two things. Because it's frustrating, because there's people who spent years and years and years, looking at evidence of other forms of life. And recently he had a go at one of the most eminent ladies of SETI. And Jill was so chill. She was so calm. She was super polite, and he completely misunderstood her question. And you can see that he was riled up by, years of.
Describe the environment here. So it was a Zoom call, right?
It was a Zoom call. It was a Zoom presentation, one of the golden, some big presentation. And she made a point that, it's not fair that he's painting the whole community as if a single brush, as if we didn't care, blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of, went on his own rant. And he, one of the things that he says is the field requires extraordinary evidence and will only accept extraordinary evidence. And it's like, well, you're making rather bold claims, my dude. I'm not sure how else to break it for you. So yes, we would like a little bit more than we are not sure where the piece of rock is, therefore it's aliens. Not sure. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. So I tried to explain that a little bit, and me and a bunch of other astrophysicists were very frustrated when people like The Economist wrote headlines like astronomers don't believe in aliens, but there's this professor in Harvard, blah blah blah, and it's just oh god, it just falls. It's plain lies.
That's tough. There's a question in the chat that's asking, how do you evaluate when people are credentialed? Which is true, because if you have a Harvard name behind you, you're associated with them, it's of course this dude must be legit.
Absolutely. And that's why we're frustrated, because it's not people's job, just a lay person who doesn't know about these things, to be able to tell the difference. And it should, the media should be more responsible, because the media has access to these people. They have access to other experts that they can ask and be like, is this reasonable? Do you guys agree? And it's their choice to present it in that way, because it gets clicks. Of course it does. Of course it gets clicks. And it's irresponsible. And it's very frustrating, because what can you do? You can just rant on Twitter to, the little circle that you have, and they will be informed. But the mass of the population that reads those major headlines is missing out on key information. And also for Avi, you have a responsibility when you're a public figure. When you have a title like this, you've got to understand that although you can have you can have your own opinions, making them public does bear a responsibility, because you have status, you have power, and therefore you have a responsibility. What is that going to do if I share my opinion? Who is it going to influence? Who is it going to represent? You can't, it's not just some random person making a post on Facebook, and not thinking this through is a little selfish and self-serving, and that's really problematic.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I think that a lot of times, especially when people who are looking at us to tell the truth, when you have a platform, and because this guy does have Harvard behind his name, it seems as though something that he says, anything he says, will be either peer reviewed or credentialed in some way, but that has a lot of power behind it. Who's going to say know what you're talking about to a Harvard astrophysicist. You are Harvard trained astrophysicist. You know what I mean? So I'm glad you said that. It's super important that as scientists, as science communicators, that we are very, very purposeful in what we say, and that we take account for what we say and understand that what we say has weight and someone's listening.
It does.
So quick question, how does it work? So I'm hearing all of this and it doesn't make any sense, but for people who don't really understand, how do you guys keep someone like that accountable, or even how does Harvard or Stanford, because it seems like because you have Dr. or because these people are behind you, you know that you're giving out this information to the public, because the media is the media doesn't have an incentive to fact check, right? So
that's the frustration. There's nothing. There's just me ranting on Twitter and like spamming The Economist with my video. That's pretty much it. People have written articles. I tried to get an article published in Newsroom, which is some news thing that the universities associate with the person I talked to didn't read it. Quickly, like she waited a week, which she's busy, I guess. And then COVID happened, and they're like, oh well, it's interesting, they'll publish it later, and then it will be at a time when no one cares. And so there is, like, if you are bringing in a reasonable discussion because it's not as interesting, it's not going to they're not going to have an incentive to publish you quickly. And that's what's really frustrating. As far as Harvard is concerned, well, technically he's never really lied. Like, those are opinions or things that are presented in a certain light. Like, he's never said, like, some of his papers are relatively interesting until you get to the discussion and he's like, alien technology, and then you skip to the conclusion. Like, they're pretty much, like the rest was maths and that was fine, and then you had one too much, and bye. But it's just, it's frustrating. Like, there are certain standards with science that I feel you just assume that scientists are going to uphold them, and sometimes they don't. And when they don't, there is no, like, it's not like there's like a board of medical doctors or whatever that can say, you're no longer a doctor because you did something wrong. Because there's, realistically, people believing in aliens from Avi's thing is not going to hurt anyone. So I guess that in a sense, there's not as much of a need for that stuff. But it's frustrating we don't have things within our own institutions that uphold that sort of standard, where when you present to the rest of the world, you're also representing your school, in that case Harvard, and it doesn't look good. But at the same time, you don't want universities to have the power to censor. So it's a question of how do we hold people accountable without creating a very dangerous precedent? And I have no answer to that. How do we do that?
I don't know.
I know.
It's hard.
Yeah, I thought y'all were gonna have the answers.
Well, in wildlife, we argue in journals back and forth. Commentaries on a commentary on a commentary.
I think it's very important. It speaks to the importance of the diversity of science communicators that need to be visible and really develop a strong platform so that your voice is amplified. You might not reach the same audience that Avi Loa would reach, but at least you're getting your voice out there so that somebody can tell somebody. Yeah. Dr. Heloise Stevance said that this is not the case, so you guys need to get it together, okay?
I just wish that some news media could actually, like, I feel like they're not really in touch with anything, because if you write a headline that's like astronomers debunk blah blah blah, like, that will get clicks surely. So why don't you just do that? They just, I don't know why. I wonder if there's not a thing with connections as well, because that guy wrote some absolute BS in Nature. Like, I think it was in Nature. He wrote a thing about diversity. Did you all see that PDF? It was heart attacks. It gave me cancer, I swear. Like, the whole thing was, like, he gave examples of, like, how... different examples of how diversity in science, like, helped a new technology, but it was all about diversity of ideas. And basically his point was diversity of ideas is as important, if not more, than diversity of gender or ethnicity. And basically, it was a case for give us more telescope time for things that have no basis. And although I agree we should do more like exploratory science, having the audacity to say with your whole chest, I swear, I can't.
That's a lot. Also, I mean, I feel me and nature are beefing for a very long time. They keep publishing things I have problems with. They also did that.
I think it was nature. I don't want to say 100%. I'm pretty sure it was, but it was an edited thing. Like some editor read that and was like, "I'll allow it."
Yeah, like.
But you gotta think about it. Like when it comes to media, so the truth is not our user, right? Well, I'm not the media, not our. But anyway, so the media is not gearing towards, other scientists, right? And even if you go towards any news outlet, CNN, newsroom, whatever you have, you are looking for really entertainment, not necessarily the truth. And then 2, whatever appeals to your fear. Because that's really what media is. It's circled around our fear. We're so used to that. Everything that's true, let's spin it a little bit. Just make it interesting, get more clicks, more views, and something that buzzy and that we can talk about. And then everybody else forms their own opinion, and that becomes the truth. Whoever says whatever the most, right? Which is
it's frustrating.
Really weird. Really weird and stupid. Yay, life. That's how we're living out here.
Yeah, exactly.
I just linked the Harvard paper that you were referencing.
Wait,
in the
The
chat.
nature paper.
Nature paper. Excuse me. Nature paper.
The other, my original beef with nature, aside from the extremely high cost to publish, is that they published that paper that was saying that that trainees under female mentors were at like a disadvantage in the social hierarchy, and it's like.
Yeah,
that was a whole mess too. But that also brings us to the next
where they literally just counted publications or some stuff to figure that out.
Yeah, it was like it was not.
Like, honey, are you okay? Like
it was.
I
not
did read
great.
that one.
But that I think also goes into our idea of like diversity and being like, okay, scientists don't have to look one way to be successful. You can be yourself and be a scientist. We all don't look alike. We all don't come from the same place, and we can all still like bring something to the table of science, knowledge, helping each other, helping the world coexist and move forward as a community. Like it's really important, I think, to talk about. And I feel like you're a great advocate for this on all of your platforms, really.
All of you are, you're amazing. This is a great conversation. I love it. Like
it's a very good conversation.
Welcome to STEMbassy, man. Every week, Sunday at 8:08 p.m. Eastern.
Man.
It's awesome. We have great scientists come on. We can talk about various things, and it's relative not just to the science that they do, but also, what's going on in current events. It's so awesome to be able to have these conversations.
Absolutely.
100%. 100%. Especially with you all.
Yeah, the energy is always really good. But Dr. Heloise, you're bringing, as a first guest for our first guest of the season, like the energy is it's off the charts. It's awesome.
If you wanted to relax, it was not for today. I'm sorry.
Not today. Now relax
That's
tonight.
never the goal. That's never the goal. You're fine.
So about diversity, right? About diversity.
Here we go.
About diversity.
Oh gosh, here we go. That sounded really good, actually.
They did.
ASMR.
Yes.
Let's not hype her up. She'll do that the whole night.
She will.
She will. While we were backstage, she was doing what we were backstage. She thought, because we couldn't say anything to her. She was like,
just calculated.
Okay.
On diversity, as you were saying, Raven.
yes.
Okay, anyways, so 2 of the people here on stage right now were in my music video, HBIC, which I released a year ago. That's how long I've been in touch with Chanel and Heloise. A year now. And we showcased diversity of women in STEM, and it was a very powerful music video. I felt it demonstrated as much diversity as we could scrape together in one video, and it was beautiful. It really was a beautiful representation of all that we can be. And I was very proud to have you all in the video. So how do you define diversity? Like what do you think diversity can be in STEM? Where do we need to move forward in STEM culture, and like in what ways do you think that we can all work together to progress the state of diversity in STEM as a whole? Big questions. Yeah,
that's a big question. Let me solve it in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Clock. No, it is a big question, and there's loads that needs to be done. And I feel like, as a European, I feel like the conversation is always very US centric, and that hides a lot of the problems we have in our own areas, because diversity is a problem that is like geographically different because of the history of like the place and the country and everything. Despite the fact that science is relatively international, like there are vast differences in the unconscious biases of, like, say, a British person and someone from like Eastern Europe. Even within Europe, it's different. And so the conversation needs to happen not just on the internet that is usually pretty US centric. It's still useful to get like other people's opinions and go back and forth and stuff, but it needs to happen on a local level. And ask yourself, like, what is the problem with my immediate community? What are the socioeconomic issues? Like, I was in the north of England for ages. It's a relatively poor areas. There's, you know, there's a lot of disparities in that come from a wealth gap. And how do you make sure that the people that come to your university are not from the same kind of families that are middle class and British and white? And like, can we address this? You know, it's so there's I've seen a lot of conversation when I was a PhD student around gender diversity and you know, like sexuality, etc., making it more like a safer space to be yourself as someone who is like bisexual, homosexual, whatever, and also like gender diversity in the sense of I've got a friend who came out as non-binary during our PhD and stuff like that. But we had so very few discussions about the fact that when we go to schools, we don't really go to the schools that, like, I went to a school when I was a PhD student. It was a big, expensive, like, private school thing. I never got like, because the teachers ask us, etc., so you go the easy way. It's not even a thing of, as a scientist, you're targeting rich kids. It's that it's just the easy path, because these people have more connections, and therefore, or like, your friend has their kids at that school, and so you'll end up going at that school. But you have to put in some effort yourself. If you want diversity, you have to put in some effort in order to like help create that balance. And that needs to happen on a very large scale, but at a local level, if that makes sense. Like, we all need to pull in, but look at our immediate communities so that we can have a direct effect on that. There's a beautiful thing called the Polygon Parable, which came out years and years ago, made by a YouTuber called Vihart. And it's about diversity. And it's a little game that you can play on the browser, where there is the squares and there's the triangles. And the squares and triangles don't like each other. And so they're very segregated. Like the squares, if there's too many triangles around, they're going to want to move to another area of the map where other squares live. Which is like not even disguised as the American issue of like racism, you know, not even trying. But you get the gist. And then, so you can play with like how much they don't like each other and see how quickly they move and segregate. And then they make you, they show you that if the place is already segregated, but now people are happy, just you know, they're completely happy with squares and triangles like equally, well, the space is going to stay segregated because people don't have an incentive to move. And in order to desegregate the space and make it more diverse, you need to want diversity. You need to seek it. You need to actually putting effort and time. And that's the only way that we're going to get to a more colorful space, where different personalities get to come together, where you don't have a bunch of rich people who are with a bunch of rich people who all took like a gap year when they were 19 and went to, like, do you know what I mean? Like, where it's different walks of life, but you need to put the time and effort in your immediate local community to do that.
I think the thing you're saying about your local community is so strong and so powerful, because I think a lot of these things seem so much bigger than us. Like, how am I supposed to fix an entire world of...
Yeah, how am I supposed to fix racism? Like...
Yeah, but I can do something in my program to push to help in my program, and that's something I can do, and I'm within, you know, my reach of being able to do. And if everyone could kind of try to do that. Also, it's hard. It's not everyone's like place. Like, we really have to work to help bring those who have been historically marginalized.
Absolutely.
It's like, it's not fair to make them fight when we've been the one pushing them out. Like, that's not.
No,
like,
exactly. And that's one thing that universities don't seem to understand, is like they want diversity, so they want people to come in so that they get a more colorful picture when they take the cohort picture at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. But then there is nothing to hold people accountable when the diverse people, whatever, you know what I mean, like are dealing with a shit show. And it's like, are you okay? Like, it's just cruel. It's just, you're putting people in a super shitty situation, and they're not given the means to come through, or like to come through unscathed, rather, because a lot of people really power through and get through it, but it takes so much out of you. It takes so much out of you. And like, it's driven me crazy. Like, I've been through a few things in my PhD, and I had more senior collaborators trying to help. But the problem is they don't understand that. They don't understand what being, you know, a minority is in science. They have this kind of mindset of not wanting to rock the boat. And the thing I've heard a lot is, I wish we could just focus on the science. And it's like, bitch, I wish we could. I wish I could. I do not have that option, though.
Yes!
Like, okay, can we?
Yes!
And it's just, and I try to explain
very
to them,
much.
like, guys, if something like that is going to happen, then necessarily, if you're fighting against that, if you're standing your ground, you will necessarily rock the boat. So if your option, if your preferred resolution is to not rock the boat, you will uphold the status quo by default. This is what's going to happen. And they were like, yeah, sure. Like, they were like, yeah, we totally hear you. And then they are beholden to the status quo because they don't understand what it's like. And it was so frustrating. And what I find really difficult, and I don't know if y'all have a similar experience, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Probably.
It's this cognitive dissonance when you have someone who is a mentor and is a really genuinely nice person in many areas and has supported you in many areas, and then they do this stuff that it like really like upholds the status quo. I don't want to give any details because, you know, protecting myself and shit.
Right.
Just simple as that. But like, it's like you're doing the thing that we're not supposed to do, and you're letting that person get away with really unethical behavior. But I know that it stems from a place of goodwill, because you want me to have a more peaceful, like, transition to something else, and you don't want it to be a whole drama. So your natural reaction is to try and calm down the thing because you think that's the best situation. Whereas from my position, I'm like, I will go through hell and fire, but that bitch is not going to get away with that. And it's just like reconciling the fact that that person did something really not okay, but at the same time, they come from a genuine place of like just being a nice person, and there's that like, it plays with my brain.
I think it's also important in what you just said to understand that it's important for someone, for example, like say you and I worked in the same department, right? I think it's super important that someone in your position, the way that you move through the world, the way that I move through the world, I think it's super important that someone who moves to the world the way that you do understands that they have certain power where they can do those things. They can say to someone, "Hey, this isn't right," or "Hey," they can check somebody, because for them to do it, they can get away with it. It won't be seen as aggressive. It won't be seen as harmful.
Exactly.
And so that's an obligation that I think, if someone's going to say that I'm an ally, I think that's an ally's obligation. When you can stand up, you should, because you have the protection to do that. Whereas I can't do that. I'll be considered aggressive or a problem child.
Exactly. And it's so hard to make it to make some people understand. Like, I try, it's like, well, you're a bunch of white guys, and the guy was like, well, it's not a matter of white guys. And it's like, well, honey, it is, but I don't have the idea, like, how much it's a matter of white guys at this moment. At this place in time, I have no energy for this. So if you don't get it, then never mind. It's a lost cause at this point. But yes, it's not understanding the fact that because you're in that position of power, you really need, if you do nothing, then you are complacent, and you are, you're part of the problem. And yeah, it's just it's something. It's something. But
Dawn had a good comment too.
Going back to Cycom and happy things that you can do, like for all Cycomers out there, if you go to schools, or if you go to, like, in my case it's astronomical society or whatever, engaging with especially young people who are different, and really engaging with them personally and seeing what you can do for them. It was a few years back, there was this girl. She was like 16, and she wanted to do a few weeks placement. It's something they have to do in high school, in the astro department, and they'd asked one person and they'd not replied, and they're like, can you do something? I was like, yeah, absolutely, I will find you an academic. And we did, and she went and she had a placement and everything, and that guy was also super, like, a big advocate of diversity, so he was like, absolutely, I will move my schedule, whatever. And she got a placement, and she did awesome, and it was great. And you can really, if you just look out for these opportunities,
it's small. That was a small gesture, but look how it changed the trajectory of this person's life.
I sent 3 emails.
Yeah, I agree with
that. But that's the problem. Here is the thing, and the thing I was talking about earlier, these people would not have lost stability of their career. They are very well-established people. They have nothing to lose. Like, their career is behind them mostly. And it's more of it's the comfort of their, like, immediate circle that they don't want to disrupt. Because if they call out someone, it's an uncomfortable situation. It's a confrontation. And it's that culture of, I don't want to confront someone because, like, it's going to cause a problem. Not realizing that not confronting the person is a problem, but it's just that they are not on the receiving end of that problem. But if they do engage in a confrontation, then it involves them more directly, and they want to avoid that. Like, even if it's just on an unconscious level and not being so keen to. So yeah, it's a whole thing where you have to ask yourself these questions consciously and think and be honest with yourself all the time.
Great point.
Big topic again.
Yeah,
that response. That's exactly what we're here for.
I know, I love it. This is great.
It is. And we don't just, like, talk the talk. I feel like every one of us on this screen right now also walks the walk. Like, I've heard of stories of all of us in different situations advocating for ourselves and really trying to change the culture of being walked all over in the academic process, in the professional space, and in STEM as a whole. Like, those days are over. We have to start standing up and using our voices so we can shift the culture, so that not only do we not suffer moving forward, but the people coming behind us, don't have to suffer because we haven't knocked down these systems that have oppressed us this entire time, or at least tried to, because they can't get me. Okay. They're not gonna get me.
I'm above it.
I'm above it all. Y'all can try me if you want to. I will read the policies. Okay. Right. I will check you real quick. But anyways, what, we are running to time for the end of our show, but I would really love to leave the audience with, if you could think of any advice on how to advocate for yourself as you are trying to find your voice and really work towards moving the culture?
That's such a good question and such a tough one, because what I have found, and it's not something I'm happy to deliver as advice, but what I have found is that unfortunately you have to stay chill and be better. You have to be better if you want people to even begin to listen to you. That's unfortunate, but you have to be calm and professional, even if people are not professional with you and throw some shit at you. You have to stay 100% professional and use your voice and you can use your voice in a very powerful way, still remaining professional, but it can take a lot of your energy to do that. That's what I found. So staying professional, finding allies in your circle. I've had great mentors who have dealt with some bullshit, I tell you. Have been able to help me bounce ideas off of them and tell me, this is the way you should approach this, or you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Don't go at it alone when you are standing up for yourself and for others, because there is power in numbers. And take care of yourself and your mental health as well, because it is a process. It's a process.
Ain't it though?
It really is. Thank you. That is wonderful advice, actually. I really appreciate your perspective. You've brought so much to the table for us tonight. We learned about supernova, novae. Excuse me. We learned about some hot goss in in the astronomy, astrophysics world, and we learned about science communication. So
Crab Nebula.
So many amazing things happening, and we're so glad to have had you on. Is there anything that you wanted to share that we didn't get to today? Because I'm sure we would love to have you on again. I'm sure that's the consensus here. But before we leave this time around, is there anything you'd like to share with our audience?
Just be yourself and be kind to yourself. If you tell yourself something in your head that's not nice, ask yourself, would I say that to my best friend? If the answer is no, then tell your little monkey brain to shut the fuck up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that.
I agree.
You have to get out of your own way sometimes. You could be your greatest barrier to your own success.
Absolutely.
So I co-sign 100%. Love it. Absolutely. Okay. Before we head off, we have an important message, public health message from our one and only public health expert, Dr. Chanel. So we're going to leave it to you. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Public health hacks. Okay, guys, it's time for this week's public health hack. Now, if you are watching any kind of social media, there has been this huge debate with people who want to get the vaccine, people who don't want to get the vaccine because they're scared. Like, oh my gosh, am I going to get COVID? What's going to happen? Listen, let's talk a little bit about vaccines in general and what's going on with this mRNA vaccine. So really, really quickly, because we're running out of time. All right, so here's an antibody. Here's an antigen. Antigen is a bad guy. See his little beady eyes? He's a bad guy. But this antibody has grabbed onto him. Now, how this happens is the antigen gets into your body like rah, 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 and makes you all sick and not feeling too good. But once that happens, your body develops antibodies, and they're specific for this antigen. That means that once this antigen comes into your body again, these antibodies are already there. They'll recognize this antigen and say, hey, you don't belong here. They'll grab it, digest it, phagocytize it, however you want to, they're gonna kill him. He's gonna be gone. Then you feel all better. That is how your humoral immune response happens when your body. You have to get sick first, introduced to it first. You get sick, and your body creates an immune response to it. Now, typically when we get vaccines, we use the antigen response. We take a little bit of the antigen, and either we weaken it or we kill it, and we inject that little bit of piece into our bodies to create this response for antibodies to come up and start fighting off the infection. But what the vaccine does is it prevents you from getting fully sick, the full-on sickness, and having to develop all the things that make you sick. Okay, that's traditional vaccines. Now, coronavirus is a really, really, really creepy little bugger. See his little eyes. creepy little bugger. He's got spike proteins. And this coronavirus is a little bit different than what we've seen before, because coronavirus is not a new family, okay? Not a new family. We know what this is. But this coronavirus, COVID-19, it has a special polysaccharide on its spike proteins. What that does is, when it enters your body, makes you all sick. It prevents your body from seeing it and recognizing the proteins as a antigen and attacking it as soon as it was something else. What the mRNA vaccine that they have out now is, the difference is, instead of taking a piece of this coronavirus and weakening it or killing it and putting it inside you, the mRNA vaccine is a copy of it's going to make a copy of the protein. So that way, when you encounter the coronavirus, it gets into your body, your body can recognize the spike proteins, attack antibodies, boom, then you feel better. Okay, you don't get sick. I shouldn't say feel better. You don't get sick. That's the basics of how this works. It's much more complicated than that, but we don't need all that. What you need to know is, if you get the coronavirus vaccine, it's not like getting an antigen-based vaccine. It's an RNA vaccine. That means it's going to make proteins that are going to fight off the infection should you become exposed to COVID. You are not going to get COVID from getting the vaccine. And that is this week's Public Health Ad in 2 minutes. Public Health Ad. Have a great week, everybody. Hope that was helpful.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chanel. We, as always, appreciate your insight and perspective as a public health expert. I just want to let everyone know that we have been covering COVID-19, and Chanel has been giving practical information about personal hygiene and disease prevention ever since the beginning of the pandemic on STEMbassy. So she's been working really hard to make sure that you all are informed. And every week she shares with us something new. It's not always about the coronavirus, but she's definitely made a strong effort to make sure you're all informed. And also Jay has her mental health note as well, which we're not doing today, but I want to make sure you all know we do focus on mental health on this show as well, in our mini blurbs. So we don't have a formal name for it yet, but I'm gonna call it mini blurb today. So if you want to hear about that in the future, definitely stay tuned. It's always a gem, just dropping gems left and right. So don't miss it. Okay. Well, we had such a good time tonight. Thank you so much for your time, Heloise. I cannot imagine.
Thank you so
much for having me. It was so much fun. It was, oh my God, I'm so happy I got to meet y'all because you're amazing. And we had so much fun, and sipped a little bit of tea and shared a little bit of advice, and it was great. And I love that.
It was. And we have some wonderful feedback from our audience as well.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. It was really good. I didn't realize that I couldn't get sick from COVID because it just changed the like, I didn't even put two and two together. So that was really good. Yeah, learning something every time.
And people also want you to come back on as well. So we'll have to communicate and see if we can align our schedules. But we would, of course, again, we'd love to have you back on.
And I would love to come back. You all are amazing.
And then a last word before we head out, just reminding you all that this week we are fundraising for Rainbow Youth, and you can find more information and how to donate at rainbowyouth.roi.org.nz. You can find STEMbassy at STEMbassy.org, on socials at STEMbassy, and on Facebook as The STEMbassy. And don't forget to join our Patreon. We all work really hard. We do it for free. Okay, for free. We are all hardworking women with jobs, okay? Big jobs. And we run STEMbassy in our free time because we care about connecting science to the public in a fun and engaging way. But we would appreciate your support. Also, we are looking for sponsorships. So if you own a business, if you have the connections and you want to support STEMbassy, we would appreciate you reaching out. Let us know. You can get to us at thestembassy@gmail.com for any inquiries about that. Okay, well, there you have it, y'all. That's a wrap for STEMbassy season.
Have a good week. Make good choices. Wash your hands.
Make good choices. Make good choices. Thank you for joining us. STEMbassy is adjourned.